Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to do a new installment of my Collection Chronicles series, and I would like to continue with some Labiate Cattleyas today. But first actually I want to correct something, because in my video on the large Brazilian Laelias I actually forgot one of them and I want to show that now. So with no further ado, let's start with Laelia lobata. So this is my Laelia lobata, which obviously is not a Labiate Cattleyas. When I received it, it was just these three back bulbs, and it produced a new growth, which is this one. Now it's actually working on its next new growth. It's been maturing for a while now, and as you can see, there are also some new roots coming. So this seems to be like a very nice plant, but I have to admit I have kind of rearranged it in its pot multiple times now, because it seems to have a climbing habit where the rhizome kind of constantly grows up. So I try to adjust it. Let's see if I have to address this at a later point as well. But yeah, this is Laelia lobata. There are quite a few other color forms of it available. As far as I know, this is a tipo. And there are some rubras, albas, albescens, and like concolors that I've seen. And I think once I get a hang of this particular plant, I might actually venture into picking up some more of these. The thing is just that I don't have a lot of space. Like, it's very, very tightly packed here, and there's a lot I would like to get. But at the same time, the plants I have are constantly increasing in size, right? So yeah, struggle. Anyways, so the next Cattleya I want to talk about is the species Cattleya warscewizii, also known as Cattleya gigas. This species actually carries one of the largest flowers, if not the largest flowers of the Cattleya species, and I have two different color forms of it. If you're a longer term viewer of this channel, you would know that I'm still desperately lusting after the named clone Cattleya warscewizii semi-alba Bedford, which has a very dramatic, deep beetroot lip, completely pure snow white petals and sepals. This is an extremely dramatic color variant. However, it's also exceedingly rare. I have seen this plant for sale only in one orchid nursery in Europe, and they charge 800 euros for it. So to me, it's still this color form that I'm really looking for and that I would really call my own. But right now I'm practicing with less expensive Cattleya warscewizii to really understand how to grow this species, so that, you know, once I'm in the position to make an investment like that, like 800 euros is a lot for a plant that can just die, I know exactly how to address its needs, and so that is not completely wasted on me. Anyways, let's get started. So the first two I want to show, I received them in July last year, 2021, and these are Cattleya warscewizii tipo from Bela Vista Orchids in Brazil. So they're from an import they did. I received two individuals in this import, and one thing they both have in common is that they've been spending a lot of time on working on root. They've been maturing some new growths, but mainly it's really been on the root front. And then both of them are actually in the process of emerging new growths right now as well. That is very promising. I've read that Cattleya warscewizii is supposed to be able to produce 2 new growths per year. So I would be interested to see if this holds true with these ones as well. But let's see. So far I'm really happy with them, and I think they're kind of at a reasonable size already, so I guess I won't have to wait too long to see if I can get them to bloom. The one reason I got 2 of this particular one is because this seemed to be a very distinct flower variant. It looks very atypical for other warscewizii I've seen. Usually they have like very pronounced eye spots on their flowers, but this one doesn't seem to have that, and it's generally very dark in color as well. So I don't know if this is a rubra or something, but nevertheless it seems to be a very interesting color variant, and let's see once these plants flower if they show the same characteristics as the plants that have been shown on the website of Bela Vista. Warscewizii is supposedly tipo, I don't know about that. Next up, I have these two plants, and I mean, I'm pretty sure that there are actually more than just one plant in this particular pot, but so this is a community pot of Cattleya warscewizii coerulea. I ordered this from Orchids and More. This one in the kind of terracotta plastic pot it used to be in the same pot as this, but it kind of separated off very easily, whereas the bunch of plants in this pot remain in one group. As you can see, there are new growths emerging in both pots, and I'm really excited to see how these continue. I'm very happy with the development on these particular plants. They have been working on a lot of roots. In general, most of my Cattleyas seem to be very avid rooters. Not all of them, but most of them seem to be really good at putting out new roots. I think that is definitely a very good sign, because ultimately growing orchids more often than not means growing roots, right? Yeah, I'm really happy about that. The next species I want to show you is Cattleya dowiana, and I have one bigger plant already, and I know this is very dehydrated, like the pseudobulbs are very shriveled. That is because it's watering day to day, and this plant is really waiting for it. I feel like in my hands this plant likes a little more moisture than some of my other Cattleyas. I'm really happy with what this plant has been doing under my care. There's a really nice size progression in the pseudobulbs. Last year it actually decided to put out several new growths in different directions. So far there's only one new growth emerging on it though. But honestly, this plant, you know, I feel like every collection has certain plants that are more precious than others. And for me, definitely this Cattleya dowiana is one of my really favorite plants, and I feel like if I had to give up parts of my collection, I would really try to keep this one with me, because it's been very vigorous on me. You can see all the roots that are coming out here. I can't wait for summer, because this is when this plant really accelerates and when it gets really hot in my apartment. This plant seems to really like high temperatures. And yeah, so hopefully then it's going to put out some more growth to really add more substance to it. This is the Cattleya dowiana tipo. And since this one has been doing so well under my care, I decided to pick up Cattleya dowiana rosita as well. I would have shown this plant in a very recent haul from Orchids. They had an import from Brazil. Cattleya dowiana rosita is a color form you don't really find that readily in Europe. Especially not at a price like this one. This was, I think, 25 or so euros, which may sound like a lot for tiny plants like this, but I haven't really seen a rosita for less than 100 euros in Europe, and they were still very young plants. So I am definitely willing to pay a little more for this specialty plant. It's definitely a new growth coming on one of them, and also there are some roots emerging, so that's always a good sign, and let's hope they're gonna continue their momentum. I really like that there are two plants, because that means if one of them does not fare so well in my hands, then there's still a backup. Next up, a plant that I guess might not be considered one of the traditional Labiate Cattleyas. This is a Cattleya iricolor. Similar as I think one of the mossy eyes I showed in the last episode of the collection Chronicles. This plant has the tendency to just push itself out with its roots, which is really weird. I don't know why it does that, but I figured maybe the roots, it just grows in that way and the roots need more air. I don't know, I just, you know, if you grow like this, you stay like that. I'm not going to interfere. And again, this plant is very, very, very dehydrated. It's watering day, as I said. Yeah, this plant, as the dowiana, seems to appreciate more water, which is very interesting, I think. I'm really happy with it. I bought it from Orchids in November 2021, I want to say. And one of the reasons I bought it was actually the fragrance that it's been priced for online. Then actually, I think Nina from Ninja Orchids mentioned in one of her videos that she heard, I forget from who, but so anyways, long story short, allegedly the fragrance isn't as good as I have read online, and it's actually one of the reasons I bought this. So let's see how this plant is going to do. I mean, judging by the size, it's still gonna take many years for this to actually give me any flowers. But you know, we're patient here. I really like to spend less on plants, but then just wait for them to grow, because then they can really adapt to your conditions and you get used to how to deal with them. I feel like from, at least from the outside, it seems to me that these young Cattleyas are much more capable of handling adverse conditions. So yeah, I think it's a really good idea to get young plants into your collection instead of, you know, buying big older ones, which then, you know, they lose their entire root system and then they struggle and everything. I feel like young plants are really the way to go to build a collection in a more budget-friendly way as well. The next plant I want to show you is this one, which is actually Cattleya schroederae. Schroederae. I have no idea how to pronounce this in English. This is, I feel like, also a very uncommon plant. They are very rare to come by in Europe, and I'm really excited to have this one. This came from Orchids in summer last year. It's been working on a new growth, as you can see, and this new growth actually also promises to be much bigger than the previous ones it has been working on, right? I'm really happy with this plant because it is showing very promising size progression. If I'm not completely mistaken, Cattleya schroederae is supposed to be a little more compact than other Labiate Cattleyas. I think Orchids claimed this is a near blooming size seedling, but I mean, near blooming size can mean everything, right? So I don't know how long this is going to take for flowering, but I'm very happy to have it in my collection because it was very difficult to source this in Europe. And apparently Cattleya schroederae is also very well known for its enchanting fragrance, so I'm really excited to have this one in my collection. The next species I want to talk about is Cattleya maxima, which comes in many different color forms, and I have a few of them. Cattleya maxima comes in two different varieties, kind of growth size-wise. So there's the highland and the lowland variety. The lowland variety grows to much bigger sizes, whereas the highland variety has much more intense flower colors. For most of my plants, I don't really know what variety they're supposed to be. However, I know that sometimes there are also crosses between the two varieties. So I think I'll just have to wait and see. If they grow ridiculously huge, I'll know they're a lowland variety. And if they stay very compact, I know it's a highland version. So I guess I have to bear that in mind when judging whether or not these plants are approaching flowering size, because I guess the difference in pseudobulb height is significant between these two varieties. But anyways, let me just get started with these two pots. This is Cattleya maxima coerulea. I got these from Orchids and More. I forget when exactly last year. I want to say spring-ish, but I'll have to double check. And as is kind of common with Orchids and More, they had several plants in the pot. So when I repotted this plant, I separated them from each other, giving me kind of this large plant and then two smaller ones. All of them are right now in the progress of maturing a new growth. That's very interesting. On this larger one, the newest growth has very recently just finished maturing, and now we're already seeing a new growth push out, just covered in sap. On the smaller ones, there's like one of the growths is just opening up and the other one also recently finished, and there's already a new one coming. I have not really identified a growth seasonality for Cattleya maxima. This seems to be a species that just kind of continuously grows. That's really interesting, I think, because the other species do have their preferences as to when they put out their new pseudobulbs, but this one seems to just be continuously growing without a major rest period. Yeah, I'm really happy with how they're doing. As you can see, especially this larger pot has a lot of roots coming. I think repotting this is going to be very troublesome, but I think that is a luxury problem, and I'm not going to complain about my plants having good roots. So yeah, there you go, Cattleya maxima coerulea. Then next up is another color form. This is Cattleya maxima alba. I got this from Orchid Garden in Poland, and yeah, again, I'm pretty sure this is a pot full of plants, so at least 2, maybe even 3 or 4. So as you can see, this is a pot full of vigorous growth. There are multiple pseudobulbs maturing right now, there are others coming, there are new ones starting. This is a pot with lots of activity and also a lot of root growth. So yes, you can see some of these plants really have long aerial roots, which I'm really happy about. I like this, and yeah, I can't wait to see what these plants are going to be up to this year. And I feel like I'm going to have to separate them and for sure also repot them at some point. The pot seems to get a bit full, but yeah, again, luxury problem. Then the last Cattleya maxima I can show you for today is the one I received from Orchids in my import from them last summer. This is the only one where I can really confirm this is the highland variety. Initially, when this arrived, I thought it's just one very big plant, but as it turns out, it's actually 2 individuals, both of which had a very bad root system and they were struggling a lot. It took a lot of TLC to get these back on track, and as you can see also by the new growths that are coming out, these plants are very set back. The newest growths are much smaller than the ones that it had previously, and the larger pot also absorbed multiple of its previous pseudobulbs, and they're completely sucked dry now. However, throughout the months that they've been with me, they've been really working on establishing a completely new root system, and also they stopped absorbing their previous growths. Actually, one of the growths that have been absorbed carried a flower spike, so I know that these plants should in theory be old enough to bloom, but I guess I'll have to wait for quite some time for them to really regain the strength they had before. Actually, Nina from Ninja's Orchids participated in the import as well from Orchids, and she wanted to pick up this Cattleya maxima as well. However, I snatched up the last one of them right before she could purchase it, which is why I promised her I'm going to send one of mine to her so she can add it to her collection. She doesn't have to import one from them again. Okay, so the last species I want to talk about is one that has been featured on my channel very prominently, and one that is also pretty rare on the market. I'm talking about Cattleya rex, and I have 2 individuals to show you, or potentially more, but I guess I'd have to do some more digging in this large pot to figure out if there are 2 or 3 plants in here. But yeah, so this is my Cattleya rex. This is same as the dowiana and same actually also as my largest warscewizii, really the core and crown jewels of my collection. I'm just so happy with this plant because all of these are very particular species. They have very particular needs when it comes to their growth conditions, and so I'm so happy that I've been lucky enough to make them grow well for me. I think you've seen both of these plants before if you've been on my channel, and if not, I'll show you the comparisons now. This smaller one, which is also a little more pigmented, used to stay with the larger plant, but it was struggling a lot. The larger plant was really taking over the smaller one, really suffocating it. And so I had to separate them, and now slowly but surely the smaller plant is really bouncing back. We have a new growth starting on it. I'm really excited because it was really on the verge of withering off, so I'm really glad I could save it. And then the large one, I mean, what can I say, right? So it's made a lot of progress for me. I received this in, I guess, mid-2020, and it was really just like a little collection of small pseudobulbs. And now it's really progressing and turning into a large Cattleya. I feel like judging by the size of the bulbs, this might actually reach flowering size already next year. And I'm super excited over that. I love that it's been really putting out a lot of roots. I love that it's really covered in sap and it's like super vigorous. The size jump on these bulbs is also like every time really consistently getting better, getting stronger. I recently repotted this plant as well, and I was just amazed by the roots on it. Yeah, I don't know, it's just, you know, sometimes you find these species that do really well under your conditions, and I feel like for me it's the Rex and the Dowiana that have really been working with my conditions here, working with how I take care of plants, and I'm really excited about that. In a recent video I also mentioned I have a cross of Cattleya Rex with Cattleya laurii. So there's a plant I showed very recently in a haul, I'll link it up there. And so yeah, I'm really excited. I feel like also once, you know, the Dowiana and this one are blooming, of course I'll try to make a Cattleya triumphans, which again is a very rare primary hybrid. For whatever reason, all the plants that I'm interested in are kind of hard to find. And I think this would be really rewarding also as part of my whole breeding journey or like seeding journey. And yeah, I feel like I've been talking a lot about this plant, so let me just zip up. Thanks a lot for watching, thanks a lot for liking the video, thanks a lot for subscribing, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!